Do you think cast members still keep in touch after a show ends? Well, I just found out the two That 70's Show cast members that Kurtwood Smith is still close with. Deborah Jo Rupp and Topher Grace were the people who knew Kurtwood Smith the best. When you work on a show for 8 years, you get pretty close to the others on it. After all, when you're a main cast member like Kurtwood Smith was when he played Red Foreman, you spend most of the year filming the show. Years after That 70's Show ended, he was asked in an AMA on Reddit who he was closest to on the show's set. Smith told him that Joe would be the one who comes closest, then Topher. Still, after 8 years, you know most people pretty well. But he was closest with those two in particular, since he worked with them more.
I was in a bit of shock because I did not realize that this was set in the 70s until I saw the appliances on the set.
Red Foreman didn't always get into trouble like the younger actors. Whenever the kids did something wrong, he was always there with a stern lecture and vague threats. Most of the time, he was mad at Eric, but it's good to hear that they get along when the cameras weren't rolling, and it sounds like the actors still talk to each other today. In an interview, Topher Grace said that he still apologizes to Smith and Rupp every time he sees them.
He loved sparklers and now he's leaving, and what are we gonna do for the 4th of July?
Because he was so new to acting when he was on the cast of That 70's Show. And when That 90's Show airs, he'll have a lot more experience than he did before. Does the show have universal appeal, though? Here's what Kurtwood Smith thinks about why everyone likes the show so much. Kurtwood Smith said that the show's universal appeal comes from how its story is based on the characters. In the late 1990s, Bonnie and Terry Turner, along with Mark Brazil, came up with an idea for a new sitcom.
The vase smells like chocolate. Really?
They hoped it would become as popular as Friends and Seinfeld. The idea behind the show was simple. It would follow a group of young adults as they go through that strange time between high school and becoming real adults. Also, their mischief would happen in the second half of the 1970s, which is why the show was called That 70's Show. Fox decided to make the show, and the rest, as they say, is history. Wait, so does that make this show a TV classic? Well, not quite. It wouldn't be fair to call That 70's Show a TV classic. It ran from 1998 to 2006, during which time it had 8 seasons and 200 episodes. As you might guess, a show wouldn't last that long if people didn't watch it, and many people did. Even though the show ended many years ago, it's still easy to meet new That 70's Show fans. I have to wonder why the show's still so popular and interesting to everyone after all these years. Red Foreman's actor, Kurtwood Smith, says that the reason so many people love That 70's Show is because the show is about the people in it, and I've got to agree with him on this one.
That you may not necessarily want to share with the TV viewing audience to help you get into that state. But for the most part,
I saw the characters change so much over time, even though they're always in the same few places. But what Smith really likes about these characters is something that I think you would all agree on. When That 70's Show was still popular on TV, the cast sat down for a series of interviews to discuss it. Kurtwood Smith was one of the people involved. He didn't talk about his character, but instead talked about the show as a whole and why he thinks it became so popular. He described it as a relatable sitcom that makes many people want to watch it, and many end up watching it every week. And I get it, because I binged through the entire show in one go.
Eric, you've just got that sensitive baby skin.
You know, I am so excited about this 4th of July weekend.
Since so many people worldwide love That 70's Show and still watch it today, it shouldn't be a surprise that a revival sequel series is coming. Most of the original cast is back in That 90's Show. Still, the show's about a new group of excited kids growing up in the 1990s, led by Leah Foreman, who's Eric Foreman and Donna Pinciotti's daughter. Kurtwood Smith has said that Red will be his usual stern and grumpy self, but that he'll also have a softer side. So what's it like for Smith to return to playing this character after so long? In That 90's Show, Kurtwood Smith and Deborah Jo Rupp are back as Red Foreman and his lovely wife, Kitty. The first episode of That 90's Show is set in 1995. Red and Kitty still live in the same house in Point Place, Wisconsin, with the famous basement where a lot of That 70's Show happened.
Oh, it is the Hellmans.
Was that a car door? That was a car door. I got it. 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 I got it.
But now that everyone has left, it's too quiet for both of them. Smith said they wanted it to be like a continuation of that 70s show where Red and Kitty are grandparents who are ready to help Donna and Eric out with their daughter. Of course, I can see that the basement full of kids that drive Red crazy will be making a comeback, but Smith's right when he says that Kitty loves that. The actor also said that Red's mostly the same as he was in the first series, but that as Series 1 goes on, you'll notice some small changes. Not to mention, there's a huge difference between the 70s and the 90s. So I have to wonder if they'll take the franchise back to its beginnings. In 1997, people looked back on the 1970s with a lot of fondness. Many adults now long for the 90s, which are a relatively stable decade compared to the 70s, which were full of upheaval. That doesn't mean that there wasn't any culture to respond to, or that if that 90s show goes back to its roots, it won't be able to find anything to make fun of. Even in the 1990s, it was easy to make fun of the idea of the 1990s, and that was the start of the first series. The show could, of course, decide not to use any historical events or nostalgic media from the 1990s. It might be like the later seasons of that 70s show and keep the focus on romance, family drama, and characters, which would be fine, but it might miss the chance to give the show a unique angle and personality that would help it take advantage of the likely coming wave of nostalgia for the 1990s. The new series will hopefully be able to go back to the show's roots as a time capsule show and build on the characters from the later seasons.
Well, usually you think that things like that might bring about a couple of different possibilities in terms of reactions, whether he would be devastated or whether he would.
So, will it live up to the bar set by that 70s show? That 70s show wasn't supposed to work. The fact that it has such a generic name makes it seem like a throwaway. But it did work, and people did tune in.
About 1 minute. Now, Donna, I'm not bragging, but if you're properly motivated, I can actually do it in that amount of time.
You don't have to tell me.
It was never a rating powerhouse, but it did well for Fox. Nostalgia can get people to watch that 90s show.
Daddy, I've rounded up some things to help the family out in these trying times.
There, you see, Eric? Your sister's a team player.
No, these are all my things.
But it can't keep them watching. That 70s show set a high bar, but that 80s show brought it down to ankle level. So that 90s show has a little room to find itself.
Yeah, I'm just not hungry.
Oh, Steven, are you finally tired of freeloading?
Can it, Lori?
All I'm saying is Daddy works really hard.
As the world gets darker and people want to relive the past, reboots and sequels are still popular, but also come and go quickly. That 90s show needs to stand on its own and not on the shoulders of its predecessor.
You're mature enough to get married, but not mature enough to replace a hubcap?
Well, let's see. You took away my keys, so I can't drive, and you took away my job, so I can't afford a new hubcap.
Do you think Kurtwood Smith's back because of how much he loved the cast?
Well, I was very excited because at the same time they told me who it was, you know.
And the original show? We'll see you in the next one.